South reunion recap. So I also did part 1 and part 2, and this is part 3. Let's get into this video. It starts off really where it left off. Persuasion and Rock fight. Y'all know that was the last thing that y'all seen on part 2. Natalie tried to run up on Rolly. They broke it up. Trina and Janisha goes backstage. They're saying Biddy is nothing but drama. So now everything is all set up. They're talking about when Anne called Brie out for being an escort on the bus. They show the fight. Anne says she only said that so she can clout chase, basically. And then she also mentioned she apologized to Brie off camera. Brie speaks about being an escort. She says she has to do what she has to do to feed her family, and she starts to get a little emotional. She says she's not proud of what she does. Trina goes on to ask, and why are we calling you Bianca? Bianca said when she watched the show with her family, they all laughed at her. She said her character wasn't built off positivity. She was just rebranding herself. She said she wasn't being herself, and she couldn't recognize herself on the show. Krishan now comes back on stage. Janisha mentioned Persuasion moment on the bus where she was crying, being vulnerable, and said she beat cancer, having a hysterectomy at 32, and then they showed the clip. Janisha then asked about Jayla not believing her about the beating of cancer. So she said she felt like she was using that as an excuse to cover up her behavior towards Rock. I actually agree with her also. Persuasion is trying to defend herself. Jayla goes to say he was messing with her since day 1. Persuasion then goes to say everyone on set goes through something, and at the end of the day, they're taking it out on someone else. The set didn't really agree with her. Then she goes to say not everybody, but some people. And then Rock says, I know you feel dumb. Persuasion goes to say, I felt like it was just a good moment for us to all come together, but I was wrong. Jayla then goes off saying that this is a waste of my time. Nobody's really being a bad bitch. Nobody's being honest. And that you can't go back and change anything that you filmed. You can't change anything about the show. Janisha then calls out Jayla and Natalie for coming on the show as friends, having 2 different groups in the end. Jayla then says it was from what Anne was saying before the film. Basically, Natalie was being fake as usual. Natalie goes to say that she actually really does care about Jayla. Then Anne walks off stage like she's saying, you're lying. At this point, I'm ready to just go. Natalie then walks off stage. Rolly and Persuasion then starts to argue about who's being real and who's being fake. Honestly, this is what this whole reunion is based off. Who's real and who's fake. Trina then interrupts them saying, none of this is actually bad bitch energy. It feels like none of them are actually real friends, which I do also agree with. Rolly goes on and agrees. Janisha then goes to say, what about you guys calling each other sister on good terms? Krishan butted in and said basically why we can't move on, because nobody takes accountability for their actions. Janisha and Trina then mention about Rock little moment when she was running from the bounty hunters. Krishan then gets emotional. They played the clip and asked her to speak more about it. Even though she didn't want to, she did. They go to ask why she was crying. Rock says she can't really explain, everything that happened. She says she does not like watching it. It's not funny to her. Trina then goes to say that was the moment that brought everyone together because they did not want to see you like that. They move on to speak about Houston. Rolly is trying to brighten up the mood and says, so we're just going to skip me beating Natalie ass. Then they move on to speak about New Orleans. They play a little clip from the last night in New Orleans. Persuasion mentioned that I had fun despite everything. We put everything aside. Rolly says she will only ever look at them as business partners. Janisha then asks Rolly to speak more about what happens between her and Natalie. So then Rolly goes to say that everyone's supposed to be left on good terms, but as soon as the first episode dropped, that Natalie began to being fake and messy over the internet. Natalie comes on stage and interrupts her. She's trying to get her to shut up because I feel like she was telling the truth. Trina then says she agrees with Rolly that they all should just stay business partners. She also called the energy delusional. They're now trying to close the show off, asking everyone their last thoughts of the show and if they would do a 3rd season. It gets around to Krishan and she mentions her new show that's coming out with Blueface. I may be doing a review about that, you guys, so stay tuned for that. Rolly then also mentioned she has her own show coming out too. She feels that her personality was being used for clout. I don't think Natalie actually liked that. She tried to end the show before the producers could end the show. Then Janisha and Trina now end the show. The 3rd part was basically just an outro. We got to discuss a few things. I'm actually proud of them that it wasn't too much fighting. This is the end of this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be back with another video tomorrow.